Welcome to Vintage Hollywood Archive. She has always been remembered for her honey blonde hair, luminous skin, clear ice blue eyes, voluptuous figure, and irresistible beauty. That compelling beauty won countless hearts and made her Miss Sweden, yet she ended up being alone. How Anita Ekberg's tragic life ended up in a wheelchair in a nursing home. Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Anita Ekberg, Legacy and Lovers. 1960's La Dolce Vita is the classic film that comes to mind with the name of a Swedish beauty queen, Anita Ekberg. Her journey from Sweden to America and America to Italy was drizzled with her admirers, and she remained an inspiration for fashion houses. The most beautiful and outspoken star ended up being robbed, living in a nursing home with a broken hip alone with her dogs. After living away from her homeland for decades, her cremated remains were returned to her country, Sweden, when she died in 2015. Anita Ekberg was born in Malmö, Sweden in 1931. She was the sixth of 8 children of a harbor master. She hated her home country forever, and once she left Sweden in the 50s, she hardly went back. She was always being appraised for her incredible beauty. Later in her life, she went to entertain American troops in the 1950s. Bob Hope introduced her as the greatest thing to come from Sweden since smorgasbord. Also jokingly, he said that her parents had won the Nobel Prize for Architecture. Not unsurprisingly, she started getting modeling offers, and later she entered the Miss Malmö pageant in 1950. She won the contest and went on to take the competition by storm in the Miss Sweden contest. And guess what? She won that contest too. After being crowned Miss Sweden, she flew to America to compete for the role of Miss Universe in 1951. At the time, Ekberg could barely speak English, but she was still a hit with the judges. She didn't win the Miss Universe title, but she was discovered by filmmakers and earned a contract with Universal Studios. In a year, she went from a young struggling Swedish model to a real-deal Hollywood actress. For Ekberg, the initial few years were a jumbled mess. The Swedish actress was intended to take acting lessons, practice elocution, and become a well-rounded member of Universal's repertory as part of her contract, but she admits that she spent much of her 6 months at the production studio riding horses. She made a few on-screen appearances before being released from her contract as soon as the law allowed. For her roles in Abbott and Costello Go to Mars, The Golden Blade, Take Me to Town, and The Mississippi Gambler, Ekberg received no screen credit. Though she didn't yet earn big roles, Ekberg was still a desirable model. She did a lot of modeling and dated various wealthy guys. Bob Hope, strangely enough, was the one who finally gave her a break in the American film industry. When Ekberg stepped in for Marilyn Monroe on a series of USO shows, she received the attention she deserved and was signed to John Wayne's Batjack Productions. Throughout the 1950s, she mostly worked with Warwick Pictures in Europe and with Bob Hope or John Wayne in the States. Through Batjack, Ekberg played the role of Wei Ling, a Chinese woman wearing a black wig in Bloody Alley. She had performed in Martin and Lewis capers, Artists and Models, but Shirley MacLaine and Dorothy Malone played the female leads. Again, the following year in Hollywood, she would work with the soon-to-be busted-up couple. If someone had changed that or for an and, it could have been Ekberg's story in Tinseltown. In director King Vidor's production of Tolstoy's War and Peace, she was able to get the character of Henry Fonda's social climbing wife. It was the first picture to take her to Rome. Despite a cast that included Audrey Hepburn and her husband Michael Ferrer, as well as Vittorio Gassman, the film was not a big hit. Ekberg was truly admired by her fans for her movie Back from Eternity. It was a remake of Five Came Back, where a plane crashes in Headhunter country in South America. Not only was it an exciting drama where the abandoned passengers got picked off one by one, but Ekberg was never so plain-looking or worked so well in an ensemble cast that included Robert Ryan, Rod Steiger, and Keith Andes. In Screaming Mimi, she worked with Gypsy Rose Lee and Phil Carey, who appeared to be an ideal match for her. It was the story of an exotic dancer who was a suspected murderer, and it was fun in its B-sort of way. However, there was more to Ekberg than a glowing face, epic eyebrows, a shapely frame, and her sensual on-screen appearance. Do you know what that was? Well, it was her sharp tongue. Bold and beautiful Ekberg often claimed, "It was I who made Fellini, not the other way around." However, Fellini was the one who offered her the film that made her 1960s icon. She also attacked the violence of modern cinema. It's vulgar, disgusting. Where's the elegance, the mystery, the romance? In 1960, she was photographed threatening a paparazzi with a bow and arrow. Despite being beautiful, Hollywood, well, America really, wasn't working out for her. At least it was not working out the way she'd hoped as an actress. Perhaps she'd burned too many bridges with her endless badmouthing of showbiz types. She managed to overshare negative stuff, and it likely did her in. Finally, she decided to move to Italy, a country that always had a special connection for her, and she considered Italy home for the rest of her life. Leaving America proved to be her best decision, and she found her best role in her favorite Rome. In Rome, she met Federico Fellini, who hired her in the role of Sylvia Rank in La Dolce Vita on the spot. They couldn't speak the same language at the time, but she claimed that they got along splendidly. I didn't speak Italian, and he didn't know English. By staring at each other, we communicated. It was fun. Unquestionably, the name Anita Ekberg went into cinema history in 1960 after Federico Fellini filmed her flouncing through Rome's Trevi Fountain in La Dolce Vita. La Dolce Vita became her signature film, and audiences fell in love with the dream woman of Marcello Mastroianni. Ekberg and Marcello Mastroianni had amazing on-screen chemistry in La Dolce Vita. Whether the two had an affair, or it was trumped up by gossip, remains a mystery. Audiences mainly remember Ekberg for her scene in the Trevi Fountain. As sensual as the scene is, at the time of filming it was chilling. Ekberg described the famous scene. I was standing there in bare legs for hours in winter, freezing to death. Marcello wore fisherman waders under his trousers and drank a bottle of spirits first. Then he fell. We had to keep repeating the take. I had lost all circulation in my legs by the end. The image of the curvaceous Ekberg in her long black velvet gown at the Trevi Fountain glued in the memories worldwide. She will always be remembered for La Dolce Vita. If we talk about her love life, it was dazzling. Throughout her career, the beautiful actress was dated by some of the world's most eligible men, including Frank Sinatra, Fiat boss Gianni Agnelli, Errol Flynn, and Yul Brynner. Film contracts and money poured in, and she was the toast of Hollywood and later of Italy's glitterati. She worked with such diverse actors as Bob Hope, Victor Mature, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Sterling Hayden, and Jack Palance, and she had affairs with most of them and a few of her other co-stars as well. Her name was also linked with Howard Hughes, Gary Cooper, Tyrone Power, and Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor admitted himself and tells in his autobiography of their romantic 2-year relationship in the early 60s, where they considered themselves engaged. She married and divorced twice, first Anthony Steele and then Rick Van Nutter, and reportedly declined a marriage proposal from Frank Sinatra. When she married British actor Anthony Steele, she was 24 years old and was at the height of her fame in Italy. While Anthony Steele was virtually unknown to American moviegoers, and she may have gotten him a role in Valerie, a western they made with Sterling Hayden. Her marriage to Steele didn't last too long, mainly because he caved under the pressure of being Mr. Ekberg. It couldn't have been easy being married to her. Steele's drinking was out of control, and he was extremely jealous of anyone who talked to his gorgeous Scandinavian wife. In 2000, she explained, "He was a jealous man who always picked fights with any man who approached me, and in our last meeting, he borrowed $100,000 from me, which he never paid back." Then, in 1963, she married American actor Rick Van Nutter that lasted for 12 years until 1975. It was her longest and final stab at marital bliss, although she never had children. Her friend and admirer, Federico Fellini, was truly obsessed with the gorgeous Ekberg. The well-known filmmaker publicly praised Ekberg's sensual beauty, describing the Swedish cover girl as a gift of God, deserving of adoration. Fellini and Ekberg were great friends, but she always insisted that they were never lovers despite some speculation. "He was the greatest film director of all time, but I would not have looked at him twice as a man," she once said. Yet Fellini's wife, Giulietta, assumed that her husband and Ekberg were lovers. When he died, Ekberg called her to offer her condolences and clear her stance. She believed, and the two were good friends afterward. While Ekberg also admired Fellini and would work for him a few more times, when the media would mention to her that he did a lot for her career, she would answer that she did a lot for his career too. She did acknowledge his important contribution, but purred, "Oh darling, people are always discovering me. La Dolce Vita was the prominent peak in Ekberg's career, and the 60s were the final decade where she consistently found work. After becoming a permanent resident of Rome, she worked in European films like Behind Closed Doors and The Mongols. But she was also frequently featured in films with members of the Rat Pack. She starred with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin in Four for Texas. And in 1966, she appeared in the Jerry Lewis film Way, Way Out. In the 1970s, her career shifted downward, and she took roles in European B-movies like Gold of the Amazon Women and Killer Nun, while amid divorce from her second husband, Rick Van Nutter. In August 1970, her villa was robbed, and then in 1987, she and Mastroianni played themselves in Fellini's Intervista that caused a wave of attention. However, Ekberg worked infrequently through the 80s and 90s, stabilizing into some form of a normal, off-screen life in Rome. In the 2000s, a series of illnesses, a robbery, and a fire left her broke. Then in 2002, after working for 5 decades, she officially retired from acting. As she grew older, she became increasingly introverted and ultimately moved to a nursing home in Rome, where she started to live alone with her beloved dogs. On her 80th birthday in 2011, she was being interviewed by an Italian newspaper, and it turned out she was no longer living the beautiful life. She said she suffered from one illness after another, and she was in and out of clinics. Ekberg broke her hip after her Great Danes bounded indoors, knocking her down, she explained. Hip surgery was not successful, and then the other one made it worse. She was shattered after spending 3 months in a hospital with a broken hip. She hoped a new hip operation may take her off the crutches and out of the hated wheelchair. And switching to that wheelchair was not the only tragedy of her life. She went through a series of misfortunes. History repeated, and once again she was robbed of jewelry and furniture. While she was in the hospital, her villa caught on fire. It was badly destroyed in a fire, after which she had moved to a rest home. She applied for financial assistance from the Fellini Foundation, but it was not seemingly helpful. When asked if she received any aid through the organization which facilitates the filmmaker's legacy, she nods her head, answering, "No, I have not." Her expense as a celebrity guest at the opening of this unique Fellini retrospective at Amsterdam's iFilm Museum was not publicized, but an employee calls it generous. Ekberg worked hard for that fee in Amsterdam, dragged in her wheelchair from floor to floor, overheard to ask plaintively, "What do you want me to do now?" from one TV interview to the next. When she was asked about the divas of the screen of her era, she jokingly said, "I am the only one still left, and the only one still working. There are no real actresses now compared with my day. It is all completely different. Discos are showing movies. You watch them on the internet. It has all changed so much." Ekberg claimed that she had never undergone plastic surgery. Well, she didn't need any surgery ever. Ekberg believed women who do that are crazy. Forget about the surgeons lifting things. Each age has its own charm. It's all about living life to the full. She said some beautiful words. "Age is a state of mind. Who is growing old? I am certainly not. My mind is clear as when I was 20. From a height of fame and glamour, reaching a wheelchair in a nursing home, she was still optimistic. At that stage of her life, she admitted to feeling a bit lonely. She had no regrets. She said, "I have no regrets. I have loved, cried, been mad with happiness. I have won and I have lost." Arching penciled eyebrows above expressive beautiful wrinkled eyes, trembling and impatient arm implying that she wants to move on. Now Ekberg is pushed in a wheelchair through a large dark space dedicated to a Fellini pageant. It was probably the last time she was the focus of flashing photographers' lenses. She stares at the wall covered in international screen and fashion magazine covers and posters, showing off the voluptuous beauty. Once famed for her mesmerizing charm and chic style that inspired the fashion houses, she crisply tells the film museum curator, "You have even more photographs of me than I have of myself. I see you don't have any of me with my dogs though. That's a shame." Then she looks into the camera, and the photographer wants her to point to herself on a huge Dolce Vita film advertisement. It is such a nostalgic moment. This contrast between fabulous youthful beauty and physically frail octogenarians is stunning. Finally, Miss Sweden left the world on January 11, 2015, from complications arising from her earlier hospital stays. After decades of life away from Sweden, Ekberg's cremated remains were returned to her country, where she's buried in the cemetery of Skanor Church. Thank you for watching the video till the end. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Also, visit my Patreon page and support my work. See you in the next video. Until then, stay tuned.